University, his JD from the University of California, Berkeley, and his BA from Princeton University. Dr. Horn is the author of more than 30 books and 100 scholarly articles and reviews. The subject range of his books includes some of his most recent work, The Apocalypse of Settler Colonialism, The Roots of Slavery, White Supremacy, and Capitalism in 17th Century North America and the Caribbean. He's also the author of my favorite book, The Counter-Revolution of 1776, Slave Resistance and the Origin of the United States of America. And another favorite of mine, Race Woman, The Lives of Shirley Graham Du Bois. Storming the Heavens. And of course, Shirley Graham Du Bois was the wife of W.E.B. Du Bois. Dr. Horn, welcome to the program, and we do apologize for the delay in starting the program. Okay, I think I need to hear you a little bit better. Doug, can we... All right, Dr. Horn, we in our last discussion off air, we talked about you discussing fascism and the fascism and what we are witnessing today, and the origin, rather, of fascism. And I refer to your publication, The Color of Fascism. Lawrence, is it Lawrence? Oh, Lawrence Dennis, and you wrote, you put forth the hypothesis that the central component of fascism is that of nationalism, and we see strong nationalism being expressed on a daily basis by the current president, Donald Trump. But let's start with your book, The Color of Fascism, and how it manifests itself in the central component of nationalism.
Well, first of all, the book you mentioned, The Color of Fascism, is the study of Lawrence Dennis, who was born a Negro in Atlanta, Georgia in the 1890s. But he was very melanin deficient, shall we say. And at a certain point, he decided to pass. That is to say, he decided to enter the community defined as white and portray himself as a so-called white person. He wound up going to Harvard, going to Wall Street, and by the 1930s, he was the leader of a U.S. fascist movement, meeting with fascist leaders in Europe, including Benito Mussolini, in some ways the founder of fascism in Rome, Italy. Ultimately, he was prosecuted and for various crimes in the United States and barely escaped prison. Now, with regard to fascism as a phenomenon, generally speaking, it arises in the 20th century in Italy and in Germany. Italy under Benito Mussolini, Germany under Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. And it represents a crisis of the capitalist system, generally speaking, because of the rise of strong trade unions and left-wing parties clamoring for socialism. Now, to cut to the chase, in the United States, even though there is a danger of this phenomenon arising, you do not have a strong left-wing party, nor do you have particularly strong unions. I don't think that should comfort us to believe that this phenomenon cannot rise in the United States. It just goes to show that there's no necessary template with regard to the rise of fascism, which, by the way, can be defined as the open, naked, terrorist dictatorship of the most reactionary sector of the U.S. ruling elite. And certainly, by that definition, it's understandable why former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright wrote a book, Fascism, A Warning, why the Yale professor Timothy Snyder wrote a book where he suggested that this phenomenon might be on the way in the United States of America. It's something we should take very seriously.
Dr. Horne, many on the left, or rather, I should say some on the left, have argued that what we are witnessing currently in the United States is not fascism, that according to them embodied the fascism of Nazi Germany, and that what is happening here is not of that extreme. Do you agree, or is it much more complicated than that? And who is to say who can borrow or use fascism in whatever political context that aptly describe some of the elements or the major elements of fascism?
Well, it seems to me, at least, that if there was full-blown fascism in the United States of America right now, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Exactly.
Who entered your studio and dragged you and the engineer out by your ear, and probably imprison you and torture you and perhaps even execute you.
Yes.
I think that the problem in the United States. I think the problem in the United States is that you've had this bifurcated system, if I can use this term, where you've had proto-fascist tactics oftentimes displayed against people of color, not least the descendants of the formerly enslaved community. And that oftentimes acts, I would say that acts as a precursor to get people to be comforted by the fact that a significant percentage of the citizenry can be subjected to such draconian measures, and thereby they think, that is to say, those not subjected to these draconian measures think that they can somehow escape, when actually it's really just a dry run to see if it can be extended to the entire population. In fact, I think that for those who feel that they can escape these proto-fascist tactics that are oftentimes displayed in targeting people of color, particularly black people, I think what they need to do an analogy of is to ascertain and to recall how so-called N-word lovers were viewed during the era of lynching. Lynching, of course, could be seen as a fascist tactic. That is to say, so-called N-word lovers, and I hope that listeners understand what I mean. I will not use the term itself. They oftentimes were treated like the principal targets of fascism. In other words, non-black N-word lovers were treated like black people. And I think that that's what we're getting to in the United States of America. And I don't think that's what people are coming to see or coming to recognize. That is to say, this phenomenon of the N-word lover and how they were treated, and how that's an analogy to how fascism will creep into the United States.
Well, speaking of creeping into the United States, when you, and again, I refer to your book, 1776, when you look at the origin of slavery here in the United States, when you look at the extermination, deliberately calculated massacre of the original Americans, Native Americans, and when you look even currently at the rate of murder of young black men by police in institutional power that is governed by the state, both local as well as nationally, and you see the rapid movement of these trends. Do you think that we are approaching fascism, particularly with respect to the duopoly, which is really the same side of the coin? I mean, it may be slowly encroaching, but it seems to be a steady drumbeat.
Well, sure. I mean, but as you know, approaching is not, by definition, means it hasn't arrived.
Right. Yes,
right?
Of course.
I mean, that's by definition. I mean,
yes.
I think that we should, as much as possible, try to get an accurate assessment of what's going on. I think that's part of the problem with the United States. Even by people who consider themselves radical and revolutionary, they don't really have an assessment of the forces on the ground. I mean, they make excuses for why the Euro-American population in its majority has voted for the right wing for a half century now, including in 1991, voting at the rate of 55% for David Duke and Alton, self-proclaimed Klansman, to be governor of Louisiana. And instead, they give us these really nonsensical arguments like, well, it's all Fox News. Well, you know, when David Duke got 55% of the Euro-American vote in 1991 in Louisiana for governor, there was no Fox News. Mm-hmm. And so I think instead of making excuses for backwardness, people should make a cold-blooded analysis of backwardness. And that's part of the problem. You don't have these sorts of analysis. You have a descent into fantasy, a descent into romanticism, a refusal to confront the essence of whiteness, not to mention white supremacy. Mm-hmm. So that's my analysis at this point.
Right. And so what is your assessment as to why the U.S. left is so conflicted and therefore not being able to produce or give a cogent analysis of what is happening on the ground rather than, as you indicated, their pie in the sky rhetoric of revolution that they are nowhere near? Why is the U.S. left so conflicted on this issue? And that they haven't produced anything.
I think part of it has been the United States has been at the tip of the spear, for example, with regard to the Cold War and the preceding historical epic. And as a result, the United States and its sidekick in London felt it necessary to batter and bludgeon the left and radical forces, and that not only included the weakening of unions, it also included measures like COINTELPRO targeting the Black Liberation Movement. And so as a result, that has contributed to this ideological weakness of the U.S. left because of the battering and bludgeoning that it has taken. But even before that, I mean, I think that really one of the crimes or one of the major blunders of the U.S. left is an inability to see that when these slave owners seceded from London in 1776, contrary to the consensus view of the U.S. left, this was not a great leap forward for humanity. It was a great leap backwards insofar as it led to the hardening of slavery. It led to the United States ousting Britain as leader of the international slave trade. It led to the United States waging war against Mexico. It led to U.S. settlers in the former Mexican province that was Texas seceding from Mexico on the basis of retaining slavery. And so in some ways, because of its inability to analyze that very sordid history, it has crippled the U.S. left in terms of trying to understand what has grown out of that history. Mm. And that's one of the reasons why I think...
Go ahead, Dr. Horne. Just one more, because I wanted to ask, and then Doug is going to chime in for this interview. So the U.S. left, as part of its historical perspective, points to the success of the abolitionist movement, which they claim gave way to being the leading role in the abolition of slavery, and of course they use John Brown. John Brown is presented as the central figure of white America wanting to deal with this issue, even at the expense of Brown's life. So, how would you address that, or what do you think of that perspective, or is it, or is it a cogent argument in terms of, obviously not what you just presented, but can one factor this in within a historical perspective at all?
Well, first of all, I think that represents a misreading. I mean, the abolition of slavery was a worldwide movement.
Mm-hmm.
The strongest abolitionist movement was, in fact, in both Haiti and in London.
Mm-hmm.
And it was those external forces that helped to move the U.S. ruling elite to the decision to abolish slavery. We all know that the U.S. president during the U.S. Civil War, Abraham Lincoln, said that he would preserve slavery if it would preserve the Union. He only took the Emancipation Proclamation maneuver, which, mm-hmm. by the way, only freed the enslaved in territories his government did not control. It was a war-fighting measure because the United States was losing the war to the Confederacy up until that point. Mm-hmm. And in any case, we know that with regard to Euro-American opinion, that opinion you just articulated represents a misreading, since mm-hmm. there was a pro-slavery faction. There was an abolitionist faction symbolized by John Brown, but he was a minority faction. Mm-hmm. It would be as if mm-hmm. trying to act like me, mm-hmm. Gerald Horne, is representative of the broad sweep of black public opinion.
Exactly.
With all due respect, that's not accurate.
Yes.
And yes. Then, of course, there was the white man's country faction, which in some ways was the dominant faction. For example, when slavery was abolished, many people make a big deal out of the fact that in the 1770s, after the secessionist movement against London is underway, slavery is abolished in Vermont. But the action, what they were trying to do was not only abolish slavery, they were trying to get rid of black people altogether. It was part of the whole white man's country faction. When Oregon enters the Union in the 1850s, they say no black people allowed, which is one of the reasons why Portland, Oregon, to this very day, has one of the smallest black populations. Mm-hmm. And so it does no good. It does a disservice to mm-hmm. try to act as if this U.S. population was more progressive than it actually was. And that hardly prepares us for the approaching fascism. Mm-hmm. When you misread the balance of forces on the ground, it's almost like you're acting like General Custer in the 1870s on the Great Plains of North America. You're misreading the balance of forces on the ground, and you know what happened to General Custer.
Exactly.
He and his men were massacred.
Yeah. Doug had a question, I believe.
Yeah,
Doug?
I do. Hey, Doc, thanks for your insightful knowledge there. You mentioned something earlier about the COINTELPRO, and I wanted to ask you, when they, on the news, they have been talking about they have no rules or no mechanisms to deal with white domestic terrorism. So how did the COINTELPRO, how were they able to do that against the Black Panthers, and now they say they don't have any way to deal with the domestic terrorism?
The white supremacists.
Well, I think by posing the question, you answer mm-hmm. it. I mean, obviously, there are those who feel that those ultra-right-wing forces are a part of the Republican Party base, and therefore mm-hmm. they see no need or no reason to go after their base. I mean, obviously, they could be engaged in more wiretapping if they were serious. They could be sending more poison pen letters to leaders of this movement, turning one against another. I mean, look, the playbook for COINTELPRO is a matter of public record. I mean, everybody carries a smartphone. You can go on your smartphone as I speak and get a baker's dozen of tactics that could be used against the ultra-right if the ruling coalition in Washington and the Republican Party were really serious.
So why is it that, one more, please, Nathan. So why is it, Doc, that they tell us that they have no way to deal with it? I mean, obviously lying, because this is going back to what you were mentioning about the media, who I believe are not they're not truth tellers, because they're there for a living. So what do you think about that, Doc?
Well, obviously that's you're asking questions that really require no response. I mean, because your question carries the answer. Obviously, they're trying to blow smoke into the eyes of some of us, trying to throw dust into the eyes of others, and obviously what they're saying makes no sense.
Well, I've been listening to you, Doc, so I've been trying to be more smarter.
Right.
I see.
Dr. Horne.
I understand.
Dr. Horn, let's look at external forces and the emerging geopolitical realities that is impacting on U.S. imperialism. And I mean specifically the rise of China. You mentioned last week its Belt and Road Initiative that will really unite Euro-Asia. It will cut a swath through the Middle East into Africa. And this infrastructure, the most ambitious infrastructure that we have had in the history of mankind, modern history, will in fact revolutionize travel and physical infrastructure that the U.S. is so lacking in, and what impact will that have on American empire and its obvious decline?
Well, this is going to have to be my last response because I'm off to another appointment.
Okay.
But it's apparent that there was a miscalculation by the U.S. ruling class when in the 1970s they cut a deal with China against the interests of the Soviet Union. Mm-hmm. It'll be very interesting for certain historians, and I've done part of the work, to go back and look what black people were saying at the time of the 1970s. And I'm afraid to say that some of the stalwarts in the black liberation movement were not necessarily taking the proper position, let us say euphemistically, at that time. And now, in other words, when China was collaborating with U.S. imperialism, they were pro-China. Now China's in the crosshairs of U.S. imperialism. They're anti-China. Mm-hmm. Now, you explain that to me. In any case, you are correct to point to the Belt and Road Initiative, this $1 trillion initiative of China. Obviously, the Trump trade war is a hysterical response to the rise of China. Obviously, Washington is responding emotionally and hysterically. For example, what happened in the last Friday with regard to Mr. Trump heightening tariffs against China. And this does not bode well. It probably will lead to a recession, if not a depression, in the United States of America. What it reminds me of, to put it in basketball terms, some of your basketball fans might be familiar with Nolan Richardson, the former black coach the former coach at the University of Arkansas. His 40 minutes of hell. And he would put a full-court press on his opponents, and the team would have a collective nervous breakdown on the court. Mm-hmm. Well, that's basically what's happening now. China's putting a full-court press on U.S. imperialism. They're responding emotionally and hysterically. The nation is having a collective nervous breakdown as a result. You see it reflected in there, everybody crying on the air. Mm-hmm. You saw Victor Blackwell of CNN crying on the air after Trump called his hometown Baltimore rat and rodent infested. You saw Andrew Yang, the presidential candidate, boo-hooing like a baby on the air. I mean, the country is going through a collective nervous breakdown because China's putting pressure on this country. We're living through an epochal transition. That is to say, the rise of an Asian power, and this is something new historically over the past few hundred years. And I would caution my black brothers and sisters that if you're going to speak on these issues, please be informed. Mm-hmm. If you're going to speak on China's new colonialism in Africa, which I keep hearing black people talking about, please get some facts.
Yes.
Please talk to intelligent people on the African continent.
Yes.
To see what they're saying. Please look at the Museum of Black Civilization in Senegal, which China has built. Please look at the Great Library in Tanzania that China has built. So, and also go back and see what you were saying if you were alive then in the 1970s when China was in Yankee imperialism's corner. Mm-hmm. In any event, this is too serious for rookies, and I hope people are coming up to speed. In any event, I'm going to have to sign off.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Gerald Horne, thank you again. Well, folks, we are going to continue with the remainder of our hour, and Doug Frazier and I will engage in conversation with some issues behind the news. And I'm going to start with, and I'm going to ask for Doug's reaction. I was just reading over a couple of things, including the blacks in Donald Trump's administration. There's really only one who has lasted the longest, and that is Ben Carson, Dr. Ben Carson, who was has been noted as a historic and brilliant surgeon who separated German twins, and I think that was in the late 1980s. Well, the Washington Post did a piece, and I researched this further, and we can go back to during the Republican presidential debates. Donald Trump called Dr. Ben Carson a pathological liar. And so, not obviously, but apparently it spurred a reporter to go to Johns Hopkins University, which in fact had fired Carson, even though he said that he retired. I think it's a mutual agreement for him to leave. And so anyway, this reporter gave a blow by blow encounter with not whites, but blacks at Johns Hopkins University who did not have nice things to say about Dr. Ben Carson. First of all, it was not him alone who separated the twins, but they were joined at the head. But it was a team of 70 doctors and technicians who worked on this surgery. But of course, Dr. Carson promoted the idea that it was him. Anyway, at Johns Hopkins University, they have a timeline with a number of prominent black doctor surgeons, many of whom are black. And they had photos, very enlarged photos of all of the doctors. And when it came to Dr. Carson, there was a small photo at the bottom. And so the reporter asked one of the workers there, professional staff person, why was Ben Carson, Dr. Carlson's photo was so small? And she responded with, "It should have been smaller." Well, there goes this thing about Dr. Carlson. And of course, we know that when he became Secretary of HUD, he put his son under contract. He and his wife ordered this fancy desk that cost thousands and thousands of dollars, and it's been one scandal after another. So if you are leaning toward good thoughts about Dr. Ben Carson, maybe you might want to Google him and read some of this stuff yourself. Doug.
Yes, Nellie.
Did you want to add to that or to bring up?
Well, I thought you excoriated Dr. Ben in a very professional manner, by the way, using both facts and also an element of giving one a history of him. I would simply add to that, pile on to that, by the way, if I might. I would pile on to say that, I mean, as one of my favorite authors, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote in the guise of his non-de-plume, or however you say that, Sir Sherlock Holmes, when it's obvious, why look beyond the obvious? So it's very obvious that he is a licensed brain surgeon. And why in the wide world of anything would someone think that the brain surgeon should be running one of the largest housing groups in the country? It's actually, just from the surface of it, it makes no sense. So anything after that that would say or would lay out all the things that you talked about, as Sherlock Holmes would say, why look beyond the obvious?
He's apparently unqualified for that particular job, and he said as much when he was first offered it. He came out and said, "Hey, I'm not taking it because I don't know anything about it." He said that, and then he took the job anyway. And so when you think about whoever offered him the job, which we already know who that petulant person is, then you see what's going on. But as I said to you earlier, one of the best things in the world that has happened to us is Donald Trump, because he has proven to people that the notion of racism and white supremacists, and domestic terrorism by whites is not a figment of someone's imagination, which is what a lot of the media types and policy wonks have tried to delude everybody to believe, because they take their own position. And you could just, if you want to know about delusion, just go to Fox Network. You want to see white delusion, which would be another term, a terminology another colloquial terminology will be white delusion. As described by Fox Network. Mm-hmm. So I don't see how Ben, getting back to your point, I don't see how Ben could look himself in the mirror and say that he's really qualified, because you don't do no surgery without it being a team. And some of the things that I heard him say,
a team of 70.
Yeah, team. Well, you don't. Yeah, I'm just saying. Anybody who's ever had surgery, and as a lot of us you get rolled into the operating room, and it's never one person in there.
Exactly.
Never. I'm just saying. I think you would be very nervous if there was the only doctor. Hello, I'm Dr. Frankenstein. May I help you?
Yeah, right. You would get off the gurney and walk out of it.
Well, I will say this. I used to be a basketball player, and I broke my. One of the things you learn about sports, you learn a lot about your different bones and stuff, because everybody hurts themselves. There's a lot of getting hurt when you're an athlete. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know about that. So I hurt my fifth metatarsal, and it had to be operated on because I also had something called a Jones fracture. So I'm just throwing those terms out there because this is the stuff that most athletes know about. They know about all these little stupid terms. But anyway, one of the guys on the team with us was a surgeon, and he decided that he would repair my Jones fracture for my birthday, and so that I went down to the hospital, and I got rolled into the operating room now, and he had on the board a big giant. They have a screen inside the operating room, mm-hmm. and he had a big thing on there that said how to repair a foot. So here's one of my teammates who's also a Harvard-trained surgeon, by the way. He went to Harvard Medical School. Harvard-trained surgeon, and he's from Harlem, and he decides that to play a prank on me, he's going to have a big instruction book on the screen in the operating room that says how to repair. I'm there to get my foot repaired. How to repair a foot. As if him and the other guys in the room did not know how to repair a foot. And so I was going to get I was going to get I forgot what you call it. I was going to get go to sleep. But when I saw that sign, I went for epidural.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I didn't trust him.
Yeah.
So my point is that Dr. Ben, when I went in that operating room, there was a bunch of doctors in that room, nurses and everything, and this was my friend operating on me.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah. Now let's. You brought up with Dr. Horn the what has been uncovered in the news slowly but surely, the fact that the FBI has been slow.
Oh, we don't have no rules. They said they didn't have any rules, Nelly.
Has been slow to deal with the white supremacist movement. And we know from the past that they have robbed armories. Yeah. They've stolen weapons. They robbed banks to finance their terror, their terrorism.
Now, when you say who did all of that?
I'm talking about
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this is 95. This is 95.9 FM on your radio dial. We're available at ghcr.nyc, and this is Grand House Community Radio. And we just got through listening to Nellie Hester Bailey, and she is had her Dr. Joe Horn on this morning. We got started a little bit late, 15-20 minutes, but we're here. And now Rick Young is here, Rick Radio Young Motivation, and he's here to sit down with his guests as we're doing our live on Sundays. And we're just happy that Rick showed up, which he always does, by the way. He usually stays all day. So we have a long broadcast a particular day here. But, we're ready and Rick's ready. And we're going to get everybody situated so that they could, so they could, so we could do what needs to be done. Okay, this is, this is a community operation going on in the project. But anyway, remember, this is Grand House Community Radio, GHR.NYC, 95.9 on FM dial if you're here at Grand Houses. And we stream on everything, your phone, the MITP, which stands for the machine in the pocket, or machine in the pocketbook, in case you got dress on. And, you just go there and click on your Siri or your whatever your browser is, and you're happening. And so there you go. And so Rick's here, and he's going to get into his guests. Who you got today, Rick? Oh, you ain't even on the ones and twos yet, or the 2 and 1s. You're there talking a lot. He came in, ladies and gentlemen, to the studio. Said he had Barack Obama with him. And I'm looking at the guy, and that don't look like no Barack Obama. That might be Barack, but that ain't no. He might be Obama, but he ain't both of them names together. He might be one of the two names. He could easily be Barack. He could easily be in Obama. But both of them together, come on, man. Come on, Rick. Now, Rick, put on your headphones so people know who you are, man. Because, people been dying, they've been asking all day. The streets are talking, man. The streets are talking. They want to know who's this guy, who's this fellow, this Rick Young fellow. Now, is your guy? Is he getting on? Is he going to be on the show? Okay, why come he ain't putting on his headphones and doing this thing, man? What's up with that, man? Why ain't he sitting up in his chair, man?
1 2 1 2.
Let me hear it again.
1 2 1 2. Oh, the other thing, I talked to you about something also. So I'm here.
Okay, but
my name is Rick Young. I guess we need to check your mic, right?
Yeah, that might be a good idea. We want to speak in there, man.
Say something.
Watch my check.
Okay. Is this your first radio interview?
Nope.
You've done other radio
interviews. You see him blowing the mic. He know what he's doing. He's like, oh,
wait a minute. You've done other radio interviews?
Yeah. he didn't see that, man. He didn't see that. Let's give him his name. Let's get to it.
I've been knowing this brother for many, many years, since back the 90s. I've been knowing this brother since the 90s. We were teaching in the same facility, a place called Equinox. Wow. Oh, they got boxing on TV right now.
Wow.
Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, that is.
That's Church Street Boxing.
That's what that is?
I was training a guy there. See, he don't know what he's doing.
Is that Church Street? You mean like
Church Street?
So right down there by the court?
Yeah.
There's like a storefront, and you walk by there, got a ring inside the storefront?
No, they
it's upstairs somewhere, something like that?
No, they downstairs in the basement.
Okay.
They got like 2 or 3 spots now.
Okay.
Anyway. But I met Aubrey.
Who's Aubrey?
Aubrey, my brother right here, Aubrey. And he's from South Africa. He came all the way from South Africa.
Oh yeah, what part of South Africa?
A small town called Middleburg. It's
Middleburg.
yeah, it's about 2 hours from.
Wait a minute. There's a town called Middleburg in Africa.
That's correct.
Middleburg.
Yes.
That doesn't sound like an African name. I'm just saying, just off the top. It sounds like some little white town in Indiana somewhere.
So if you know the
We don't. No, we don't know. No, we don't know that.
well, I'm glad you said that. So
We don't know shit.
So Africa was colonized by Europe and partly America, and so some of the countries they do bear some English name like South Africa.
Okay.
And so, for example, Johannesburg, right?
Berg, yeah.
Everybody knows.
I didn't think of that.
Johannesburg,
I didn't think of that.
Cape Town.
I didn't think of that.
These are all white names,
I didn't think of that.
but they are famous over the world. So
We know a lot of people in this country. They know. I'm not a kid. They don't know nothing about Soweto. I saw a film about Soweto. I was crying. I started crying. I was a grown man. We don't know shit, man. There's nothing in this country that tells anybody about anything except for the white men in this country. That's it.
why is that? Why is that the case?
Because they have an apartheid economy, apartheid policies in this country, and you from South Africa, so you should be able to recognize it as soon as you get off the plane. Everything here in this country is designed for one small group of people, and one small group of people of the same race and the same gender. They make all the rules. If you go and pick out the 25 richest Americans, they're all from one race and one gender. That's how things work here. But because of the president, some of that stuff's coming out. And so people need people like you who knows what apartheid really smells like. So you can smell what they're cooking, man.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'd like to advocate for is for parents, whether two parents in a household or one single parent. What I'd really like to encourage people to do is to start taking smaller trips, right? From here to, let's say, Connecticut or New Jersey. Just start taking smaller trips, and you can start increasing, going to like Florida and other places, ultimately going outside the country. If you do that, you start to notice how other people live and how other people's cultures look like. Not only in the United States, but also all over the world. For example, some years ago, I went to train in Indiana. I spent about a year in Indiana, and in Indiana, it's totally different than in New York, right, or LA or Miami. So, by traveling, even within the United States, you see the differences in culture and behavior, even in language, per se. That's why we have things called, the Southern, accent, but this is still part of the United States. So if we can do that, I think we can then start opening up our minds, see things differently, and be able to see if we're being played or not. And because of that, you can best position your children so that they can have better shot in life and better opportunity. That's how I see it.
Hey, Aubrey, let me just step in for a second because I had to bring some. I got a couple of hitmen with me. We had to do a cleaning job. We had to take care of this brother. He didn't do the right thing, so that I got my boys said we're gonna take care of business.
No violence.
Why not Aubrey? They after you, man.
It's not violent. It's not violent.
They after you, Aubrey. So let me just finish that one more.
Yeah.
So, Aubrey, so you're saying that people need to take and people need to take and go to these other places so they can see what those cultures are really like.
Yeah.
Okay, because you don't. I mean, a lot of people here, they don't get a chance to do that because they're POOOR. That's an African word.
Yeah. So that's
That's an African word. You know that, right?
right. But so that's not an excuse, right? So
I'm just saying.
So if I'm poor, right? If I'm as poor as I am, right? I can have a very small budget to travel from here to, let's say, as I said before, Philadelphia. You know, there are great museums that I can go see in Philadelphia. Some of them for free. You know, so what I'm saying
What are
is,
you going
if-
there for? What are you going there for?
to Philadelphia.
Yeah, where you going to Philadelphia?
So if I was born in Harlem and I've never left Harlem,
Okay.
and there are people,
Okay, I got you.
there are people who are
But
in
you,
that
really, you said, but you really said, but they ultimately they should be going to places like Africa and seeing what's really going on. I mean, let's just start that Philly, that stuff. You know, like you really get to the real medication. Get on the plane, go to some place where black people are running the country and see what it look like. Is that what you're saying?
if I said to you, I will give you $10,000 right now, and I say, where would you like to go in the world? 9 out of 10 people, our people of color, would say, I want to go to France, I want to go to, to Paris. I want to go to places
What's your name
that.
again?
Hang on, I want to go to places that have nothing to do with self-empowerment as a person of color.
Got you.
Now, I'm not against Paris and all those. I've been there, right? I don't have anything against those places. But for me, it is important to first understand who I am and where I come from, my culture. For example, when I came to this country, one of the things I wanted to know was Harlem, and I wanted to know the culture of Harlem, understand the black history, and that's exactly what I did. So that essentially empowered me. And I'm saying, if we can start doing that to, for our people to travel and see places and see people, especially Steve Harvey not long ago was in Ghana. And if you ask Steve Harvey, how did you end up in Ghana? He's been in so many other places before Ghana.
That's crazy.
I mean, that tells you the whole story. Now he gets to Ghana as a grown man, and he sees the slave entrance, right, before you board, and the slave custom, and he gets blown away by that because he's never seen anything like that. And in his mind, he said, "Whoa, this is how I actually came to America." So I'm saying we need to have more people do that before I go to Paris. That's my opinion.
I like it. I don't think we're that. I'm glad they got the internet because I don't. We're not. We've been misinformed here in this particular country. We don't know shit, and people don't. People don't. If a white guy or a white person go on TV and say something, people actually believe it. They believe them before they believe their own family. And don't get me started on that fake Facebook shit. Because if somebody's doing something and they making money off of your information, you should be concerned. That's all I'm saying. Somebody you giving somebody all of your information and they making money off it. You should be concerned about that.
Well, speaking of making money, did you know, Doug Fraser, this is a boxing party?
I can see by some of these young people in here that there's some boxing. But I didn't know my man was a boxer. He's a boxer right here.
This is what I'm saying. Hey, listen, I was just telling these guys, I said, I didn't plan this.
What about that? Okay, so you got the boxing. What about that dude from England that that fought the big fat, supposedly fat Spanish man, and that man kicked his ass, man.
Boxing has nothing to do with weight. It's got to do with skill sets. If you have skills,
That guy proved it. He sure people didn't know that. They thought people try to think that if you're a fat person, you know shit.
Aubrey, how many fights you had?
about 2022.
22 professional matches?
Wow.
That many? I didn't know that you had that many.
Was he a middleweight?
No.
No. I started as a
What you at, lightweight? What do you know?
147?
147.
How much you weigh right now?
No. Come on, man. No.
You ain't sick. He look like he weigh like 190 pounds or something over there.
Yeah, throw 5 more pounds.
That's pretty good. I was gonna say, you can play quarterback right now, Jack.
Listen,
You can play like a quarterback.
I'm happily retired, and
You play basketball?
I played football, basketball, soccer, cricket, bunch of other sports.
Oh,
But listen, I'm happy to be retired.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to spar. I'm not looking to.
He been begging for sparring partners. He was saying, I hope a boxer walk in.
Ricky
was saying, I hope a boxer walk in here so I can knock his block off.
I
He
know
been saying that. I'm glad y'all in here. He been saying that. He noticed he ain't saying that now.
Yo, you know what? No,
instigation.
Yeah, hey, look, no, I don't mean that.
the guys I want to box, I want to box the guys that can box.
Yeah.
Not the guys that could box. I want to box them too, but I want to box the guys that can box so I can teach them a lesson.
Yeah, but we don't have nothing to do with you. We scared. We scared to death. We don't be fucking with that.
Listen to this, right? So in my career back in the 90s, Floyd at the time was in the Olympics, 1990.
He was a little baby.
Yeah, he was a little baby in the Olympics, right? So myself and a few other fighters like Roy Jones and a couple of others, literally, we wanted to take control of our own careers. And we had such an incredible pushback on it from promoters, including the commissioners, by the way. When I say the commissioners, I'm talking about contracts that are allowed by the commissioners to say 1/3 of your purse should be taken by your manager, 10% is taken by the trainer. When you do the calculation, literally you have nothing left as a fighter, as a professional.
Welcome to America.
No, it's not a welcome to America because that happens all over the world. So, we fought against that in the 90s. As I said, very, very small group of us. That's the first thing. Second thing is we fought against, not being able to have a say on the table. For example, you hear fighters today talk about, I just had a great fight, so what's next? Talk to my manager. Dummy, you're the one who's fighting. Don't tell me to talk to my manager. You should be the guy who's saying, well, we're going to sit down and figure out what's next for me. But don't say talk to my manager.
Right.
And that's the mistake a lot of fighters are making. And in the 90s, when I fought against that, my opportunities were incredibly limited. I remember a promoter in New York said to me, okay, Aubrey, you have these 300 tickets, go sell them. And of course, I had my purse. I had a contract in my purse. So I go sell these tickets. And I say to the guy, listen, when I bring your money from the tickets, I want my expenses paid. And he said to me, nobody's ever asked for that. Ever. And then I said to the guy, well, I have to take a train, take a cab, go places, sell the tickets.
Right.
How do you think I get there? So don't tell me I have no expenses. But this is how the game has been set up. Right. So Floyd Mayweather, when he took over the game essentially and started to change things, literally we laid out the game plan as to how he can do that. But we're the ones who actually took the brunt of the hate and the pushback and basically being, taken out of the game. I'm happy I did that. I never became the world champion because of those reasons, but I'm happy I did it so that guys like Floyd and the next generation can have the opportunity to say we promote our own shows, we own our own selves. So I'm happy for that.
I like that, man. I like that.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing because you mean to tell me the promoter have you sell the tickets, give them all the money?
Everybody. In fact, if you go to Gleason's today and ask some of the trainers who are selling tickets on behalf of their fighters, they will tell you like this. We're going to sell the tickets. Every single penny goes to the promoter. Today.
And we don't have a pension either.
Don't get me started with that. I had some huge fights about pension and better healthcare coverage, etc., etc. Again, it's not just the promoters, right? It's the whole game, from the commissioners to the promoters to the TV. If I am Showtime, let alone HBO, HBO is not in the business. If I'm Showtime, this should be part of what I want to stipulate in a contract. How well are you taking care of these fighters? And if you're not, then we need to have a strong conversation around that.
Hey, Rick, man, where you go? Get back in here, man. Get back in here, man. Get back in here. Get out, man. Just mess with you.
He's getting a little too
He actually turned around and acted like he was going to listen to me. Stupid. Get out of here. But, he like I like the idea that, the question I was asking about boxing before was that guy from England that's the heavyweight champion guy. What's that dude's name?
No. Ruiz.
No. That's the guy.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Ruiz.
Ruiz is the guy. Okay. You gotta put that on. Can't hear you. Ruiz is the guy that beat
the champion.
Anthony Joshua. He got Buster Douglas, right?
No.
Yeah, Buster Douglas did Mike. He went in and knocked Mike Tyson out. Right?
Anthony Joshua is
you have to put the microphone down and talk. Put it down. There you go. I'm talking.
Anthony Joshua before Buster Douglas.
Okay, no. You missed the point. Buster Douglas. When I say he got Buster Douglas went in and knocked out. Nobody thought he was going to lose, and he went. It was a win, and he went and knocked out. What's his name, right?
Yeah.
So see what I'm saying? See where I'm going? You missed that, man. So he got to stay right there. So my point is that you as Buster Douglas, Anthony Joshua, because Anthony Joshua thought he was going to go in there, because I saw him on Jalen Jacoby. He was on there talking about, yo, man, he's going to dust my man off and all that shit. And then at the end of the day, he didn't do any of that. He didn't do any of that. Okay, so we got, hey Rick, man, give these people some seats, man. Smack the piss out of you, man.
Excuse me?
I'm smack the piss out of you, man. They're in the projects, man.
Yeah.
PJs, man. You fuck people up in here, man.
All fighters up in here.
Yeah,
all fighters, all champions.
Okay.
What?
We got cameras in here, man. Don't listen to him, man. We got cameras in here. We connected to the ring masters.
We have a chair right here, guys.
Ring
Can
guard.
we use that chair right there?
Don't sit over there. Let him sit over there. Come on, man. Sit over there, man. Come on. Squeeze on around. No, leave her alone, man. Come on around, because we want her to so we can see her on the camera. We want your back at the camera. There you go. Yeah, you're black. You're black. We want her to be on the camera. Okay.
Well, that's,
No, you're not.
that's called beauty.
Yeah, that's beauty.
Yo,
So, see, we got a camera right here, so when people come to the website, they can see all y'all, but they only can see his back. See, I'm just saying. So he the back. Me and him are the back guys. Everybody else up front. So go ahead, Rick.
Okay, so Aubrey, let me just finish up with you. Not finish up with you, but so everybody know who you are. You were born in South Africa.
Correct.
And did you get into boxing in South Africa or when you got to America?
So in South Africa, I was a national champion.
You was what?
National champion.
A national boxing champion.
Yeah, and so I don't know how many people know the history. So back in those days, 80s, right? I couldn't really do anything spectacular just because of the apartheid and segregation and the rest of it. So I decided, let me go to a place where I think I can test my skills. And came here.
Now you know that Nelson Mandela had done some boxing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ricky, where have you been, man?
I'm just letting. This is for people to know. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't even know that.
That was part of his sort of like mental strength, was to be a boxer. And keep in mind, back in those days, as a black man going against the white regime, like he did, and a few others, literally he had to know how to fight. And that was part of it. Not to say that he got into a street fight with a bunch of white people, but that was part of, should this happen, can I defend myself? And that's exactly what I did.
And you came all the way from South Africa to America. Did you come by yourself?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a hell of a trip.
It's not unique. A lot of people do it every day.
Now, how did you meet Michael Olajide?
So I had a friend. So my story was this. In South Africa, we had a world champion called Brian Mitchell. Brian Mitchell was a light champion. My cousin was his chief sparring partner. And so, I was still very young, at school, etc. So they asked me to come and train with them, and I came and trained. And so the world champion Brian said, "Look, let's spar with this kid." I was already national champion, so I sparred with the world champion. I'm thinking, the beauty about being young is that you're not scared. All right, this is the world champion, and so on. So we get in there, we spar, and I pretty much held my own nicely. And he liked what he saw. He said, "Look, I don't think you're going to do well in this country. You already are a national champion. You need to go to America." And that's exactly how it happened. So I left.
But how did you meet Michael Olajide?
So Mike kind of heard about me out in the Bronx, this African kid, and he came by, looked me up. He was like, "Man, you remind me exactly of myself." Right. I think I might have seen one of his fights. That was the fight against Tommy Hearns.
Before Tommy Hearns,
Yeah,
before
yeah.
Iran Barkley.
Yeah. But I saw the Tommy Hearns fight, and I was like, oh, that's Mike, right? But I didn't know a whole lot about him, and we kind of hung out. He was like, look, I'd like to manage you and work with you. I was like, I didn't have a manager at the time. I was like, whatever. And we got it popping. Next thing you know, I'm doing my thing. So that's how that happened.
That's a phenomenal story. Hey, Doug, when you think about the word fortune, what becomes present for you, Doug? Fortune. Fortune.
Nothing.
Nothing.
I have no fortune.
Aubrey, what do you think about when you think about fortune? What do you think about? Like, you have a fortune.
Yeah. So for me, that has a number of meanings. One is finance. I can look at fortune in terms of earning power, right? But I look at fortune as in my health, right? I mean, think about it. So being a pro fighter for so long, I've done a ton of things that are combat related, and I'm, went to school, graduate, business degree, go to Wall Street for almost 20 years. So to come out of that and still operate functionally, to me, that's a fortune, in a sense that, as a fighter, fighters, unfortunately, we are not known for being intelligent. And I don't know where that came from, but the reality is we got some of the smartest guys that are in combat. And I'm one of them, one of the examples of that. I mean, Floyd, one of the first billionaire athletes, right? So we don't get as many or as much credit as we should just because of the perception that we out there banging each other's brains out. But that's not true. There's so much art goes into it. Making a long one short, since I have my health, right, I can do a ton of things. I've been blessed in terms of education. Having been, as I said before, in Wall Street for so long, to me, that's all part of my fortune.
Well, speaking of fortune, there's a gentleman that I know of, and we usually run into each other on Lenox Avenue, and that would be your cousin. If you said his name, I would know his name.
Harry.
Nah, not Harry. The one that used to be on Lenox Avenue. And
All my cousins and my uncles will be over there. My uncle Eugene, my cousin Harry, my cousin John Doe. I have so many cousins over there. Cousin Kevin, Chico.
One of your cousins used to always
Laverne.
No. He used to always tell me about you.
Right.
And I think he had the heart.
Harry.
That's how. Okay. So I know they call him a different name over there on Lenox Avenue.
Okay.
So anyway, he told me about you because I guess he knew that I did some boxing.
Right.
So he told me about you. He said, your story is incredible. And I know you have boxed. Now, were you an officer?
Yes.
What type of officer are you? Oh,
Police officer.
okay. And were you boxing at the same time?
No, I was school safety at the time.
Okay. You got into boxing after your accident?
No, I got into boxing. That was during the whole thing.
Wow.
So my accident was pretty much 8 fights as a pro. I was 7-1.
7-1 as a pro, then you had an accident.
Right.
Wow. Can you mind speaking about the accident?
Actually, the accident was down the block from here on Amsterdam Avenue, on Amsterdam Avenue on 122nd.
Oh my God.
It's crazy. I was in a motorcycle accident where I pretty much almost lost my life. And a couple of other things, but
Uh-huh.
I thank God that I'm here.
Right. So, what about your leg? Talk about your leg.
Well, there was it was really, really bad, and part of my, my lower right leg was damaged so badly that they had to remove it. So, I mean, what more can you say?
But the way you saying that is that you've taken that and you've like pushed way beyond that because
yes,
you continued to box.
Yes. After that, I did more boxing. After that, after I healed up and got better.
Uh-huh.
I was a part of the NYPD boxing team.
Mm-hmm.
And with that being said, I pushed myself daily and constantly because I know what it takes to be a winner. I know what it takes to be a champion. Because I was one prior. So I didn't want to want anybody to give me any kind of sympathy. I didn't want nobody to know that I wasn't an able body. So whatever you had to give me, bring it. And that's just how I train, just like that. So if somebody was in the gym giving 100%, you can see me over in my corner giving 200%.
I wanted to ask him whose helmet is that?
Those are my helmets.
So you still ride a bike now?
Yes, sir.
So so what about that? That's pretty amazing that you would still. I think I would be scared shitless to get on that. I mean, how'd you get your courage up like that?
I have a strong family, and it's better than me. I was never pretty much afraid of anything. So it's like in a relationship. Sometimes you have a bad relationship. Do you stop loving? No. You go right back to what you love. So that's what I did. Boxing is something that I love. So I went right back to it. But when I went back to it, I was even more focused than I was when I was pro.
What about the bike though? I was asking about the bike. The helmet and the bike.
It's pretty much
I didn't ask you about getting back on the box. So how'd you get the courage up to get back on the bike? How'd that happen?
Pretty much the same. It's embedded in me. I just said once I was able to do all the things that I wasn't able to do, I said I'm gonna pick all that stuff back up. So it wasn't hard to do. It's something that I love. I love riding motorcycles.
Now, but I mean, to me, the boxing part. So you was on the NYPD boxing team.
Yes.
And you fought against other police officers.
Yeah. Well, they wouldn't even allow me to fight other police officers because it was a disadvantage.
Okay. Whoa. Why they wait. Why they wouldn't let you fight other police officers?
It was a disadvantage.
Oh man, listen.
So
but how did they know that?
Because they kind of, I have a Lieutenant Steve. He kind of knew my pedigree, so he watched, he watched me as an amateur and as a pro. So I was fighting like they, I applaud you because I was a national Golden Glove champ also. So I wasn't able to fight the regular police officers because they know they wasn't, they wasn't as skilled.
But you got the.
Like I said, that didn't even matter. You wouldn't even, if you was in a ring with me, you wouldn't even know unless somebody told you. Even if somebody told you, you wouldn't believe it.
Okay, because he was bringing it. He had to be bringing it, Doug. He had to be bringing the heat. So you fought against firemen as well?
I didn't. Like again, they wasn't on my level.
Oh.
So just to clarify, he was already a professional, which meant he couldn't fight in some
certain shows.
Yeah,
right.
he's a professional. He had a license.
Right.
So he couldn't fight firefighters, police officers.
They got a thing called exhibitions.
I did fight. I did fight one of their top firefighters. His name was Alex. It was Alex something, and it was an exhibition. So it was like they top because he was beating all the police officers like prior to that. So they allowed me to fight him at a place called Webster Hall.
Yeah, we know that.
And I fought him and
dusted his ass.
Yeah, I watched.
Wait. He was beating all the police officers.
Yes, at that weight. So it was the weight was at 147, and I don't even think I was 147 at the time.
Hey, so do you play basketball?
Yes, I do.
I haven't met one boxer yet that think they can't play basketball.
Oh, but I can
What's
really
going
play.
on with that? And they all say that. What's with that, Rick?
Oh well, listen.
If you and I went out and played basketball, I would have been dunking on you.
I was all city with Alfred E. Smith. I played with Alfred E. Smith 3 years. I was varsity, and I was all city that year from 86 to 88. So
Was you the center?
No, I wasn't center. I was the point guard.
Well, I used to be a basketball player, and I was telling Rick that we used to work out, and all the time, like boxers,
professional boxers and football players would come. You know, I was playing with the NBA guys. They would
Right.
come and play with us. And the two toughest athletes that would always talk about is boxers and football players. Football players because they know how to intercept you.
Steal the ball, right.
Well, no, they know how to beat places because they're
Right.
anglers. So no matter how far you get away from them, they'll cut you off.
Right.
The boxers, on the other hand, are guys who you can beat the shit out of. When the referee there, we would specialize in trying to fuck guys like y'all up because y'all could take it and y'all got and people don't even know it. You know what I'm saying? People. I mean, like if I could go and foul you. And you wouldn't think nothing of it. Well,
Right.
if I foul somebody else, they'd be crying like a baby.
right.
So we would be like going, "Oh, the boxers are here." And everybody would turn their game up because y'all guys are tough. That's a compliment.
Right.
Even though you say you're gonna dunk on me, I ain't going for that.
But Q, I just want to say, man, that your story is a phenomenal story. I believe that people need to hear that story. You could take that message on the road. You could take. Wow. I see books. I see films. I see all of that you could do with that story. That's an incredible story, man.
Yeah.
Because how many people give up?
Yeah, man.
Yes. Actually, I do speeches for the Wounded Warrior.
Oh,
So
Okay.
like, so once a month, I go to different facilities, and because
not prison.
sometimes people
Not prison.
no, not prison, but different facilities like where they're housed
Hospital.
at. Yeah, hospitals.
Veterans.
So a lot of people there on medication. I thank God that I'm not on any medication or anything like that. But some are heavily sedated, dealing with their issues. So I just go and talk to them and try to soothe them in a sense. But I can't. I'm not a medical MD, so I can't tell them what they need or what they don't need.
Yeah.
So but I just try to give them a little sense of peace. Saying that it could be done if you're willing to do it.
But I'm gonna get back on your cousin, man, because he talked to me about you so much that he convinced me that I need to talk to you.
Right.
And then I saw you in the gym
Right.
up in the Bronx.
Right.
I thought that was ironic, but he convinced me that you were somebody that I definitely I needed to and wanted to speak to.
Right.
After him telling me your story, because you might have to hire him as a spokesman.
Oh man.
Wait.
Yes. I was just calling him. Actually, I was just calling him. He didn't pick up the phone. I was calling him, telling him I was coming here because I want to go pick him up so he can,
Yeah.
see this.
And we first started talking about this quite a few years ago.
Yes, very.
Yeah, so now
Maybe
we
about
finally,
10, yeah.
finally here.
Finally.
And
I
then
thank
out
you.
of
I
all
thank you.
places in the projects.
Yes.
And right up the street from your accident. I think
Right.
that's incredible.
Right.
Now, when did you start teaching boxing?
I started teaching boxing maybe about 5 years ago.
Uh-huh.
About 5 years ago, and I have one of my guys that I actually train here, and another from my gym that's trains. Actually, they both turning pro. Afacio Falcone and Emmanuel White.
Okay, they turning pro.
Yes.
That sounds like a plan.
Yes. Yes. No, you can check their history. They tan up the amateurs.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you
Tan
started
up.
them from the beginning?
Actually, I didn't start them from the beginning, but I just kind of fine tuned they faculty. That's all.
Okay. Well,
And Facio, he's trained by his dad, which is present back here also.
Okay,
Wow.
wow.
Yes.
and I also want to say we got in the studio Felicia. So, hey, Doug, I did not plan this, Doug. This is like a universal, organic thing that happened.
Yeah, we like it.
I didn't plan it.
We like it. We like it. We like
I've
it
been
a
talking
lot.
to Aubrey for a while. Aubrey, you train now as well too, right?
No, I'm
No.
fully retired. I just go to the gym, lift weights.
You don't teach boxing anymore? Because I know for a while you were teaching more for exercise.
Yeah, I'm
Did you
done.
teach fighters to get in the ring as well, or just for exercise when you were doing it?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, because when we taught at Equinox down on 19th and Broadway.
Yep.
I had a blast down there. It was fun.
What kind of motorcycle you got, man?
Well, I have three. What I'm riding today it's called a slingshot.
It's like a bullet bike type shit.
I have a cruiser.
That's what they call it.
No, I have a cruiser.
Yeah, that's like a bullet bike. I don't know.
lot of those terms.
No, I have one of those, not the bike that I'm riding.
Okay. So the bike you got today is what they call it?
It's called a slingshot.
What does that mean?
When we done, you go outside and see if it's.
Oh, it look like those one of those.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we take a picture of it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Okay. So, like I said, Doug, I didn't plan this. Felicia, we talked. I want Felicia. I want you to talk a little bit about who you are and what you're doing as well. And the brother here from the Rotary Club that we met, actually met before. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about who you are. We got to get some more mic up.
Say what? Oh, you got it. Okay.
It's ironic that Felicia would come to
Is
all these boxes.
she a boxer too?
We're going to find out in a minute.
We've had this discussion before. I'm not a boxer, but definitely have history with some friends in boxing. We'll just leave it there.
Well, you're doing some boxing in a different way.
In a different way, yeah, I am. I'm a street fighter for the people,
Yeah.
a
And
servant of the people.
that program that you got is incredible.
Yeah, it's all good work. So today, and the reason why I was able to snatch Dwayne to come up in here with me is because we packaged and are disseminating about 200 blessings bags for those that are either homeless, housing insecure, or not as fortunate as some of the rest of us. So I love when you ask that question about fortune, right? And so for me, fortune is just the ability to give. It is me giving. It is me spilling of myself onto others. And so it's not about what I have and what I can take. It is what I can give.
Well, his name is Q Fortune.
Hi.
Quincy, right?
Quentin, I am Felicia. So that's me just, correcting the enunciation of my name.
I said Felicia.
Always. You always say that, but that's okay. Felicia.
Okay.
Yes. So yeah, it's all good stuff. So Dwayne was with me. Oh, so in the bags are, knock it off, Dwayne. Are you going to ask me the question or are you going to answer it? So it's socks, it's deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrush, feminine hygiene products, whatever someone who, may have to sleep outside or not have the ability to have those kinds of items at the ready, we were giving them out at the ready. And so a whole group were over on Lexington and 125th today. We opened up our center today so that people can go inside and have some snacks, thanks to Harlem Rotary, and grab a blessings bag and hopefully get loved on while they were in the doors.
And talk about your center on St. Nicholas Avenue?
On St. Nick between 124 and 125. And so the Pillars opens its doors, but that's only because of the partnership and one of the partnerships that we have. And today it was Harlem Rotary that gave us the opportunity to do this work. But, we have 12 sectors at the table with us that help us do the work that we do every day.
Wow, that's pretty interesting.
Yes,
so
great work.
Can you tell them about the Pillar Center?
Of course I can. So the Pillars is free services for anyone that is either like me in recovery and or loving somebody in active addiction. And so it's free yoga, meditation, acupuncture, Reiki. But we've also, because of other partnerships like that with Soulful Synergy, trained over 175 men and women in this community to get their OSHA certification. We have parenting skills enhancement classes, domestic violence prevention initiatives, and batterers accountability classes. And so whatever the community tells me that they need, we bring it to the table on October 4th. And so your listeners are hearing this before anybody else in the community is hearing this. But on October 4th, we are opening a clinic and that is in partnership with New York Institute of Technology's College of Osteopathic Medicine. And so at that clinic, there will be sick visits, well visits. You will be able to do physical therapy, occupational therapy. And so, again, no insurance, no problem, no citizenship. I don't give a damn. If there's anything in this community or anyone in this community that is in need of anything, we will figure out how to get it. And this clinic is just another opportunity for us to give back.
Now, how is the Rotary Club connected with that?
So the Rotary Club is one of our 12 sectors that I mentioned before, but with those 12 sectors are NYPD, Fordham University, Catholic Charities, Harlem Hospital, Hunter College, Children's Aid Society. And so we have sectors, members that each have their own identities, and they each bring something unique to the table that helps us do what we do in this community.
Can we let GHCR be part of that sector as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I'm really excited about you asking me that question because each of those names that I mentioned actually covers a specific category. And so if GHCR would love to be our media partner, we would love to do that. We do have media, but we also have healthcare, civic engagement, law enforcement, and everybody has its own sector, education, teens, parents. And so I would love for GHCR to be our media partner.
So, ladies first. I kind of want to hear from everybody because I know how I'm feeling right now. I want to know from the people in here how they feel about all this greatness that's in this room right now.
And so since ladies are going first, what I can say is I'm only great because this community raised me. I am only great because this community allows me to.
I don't like the word only.
I'm only great because I am a servant, and so that is where I place the ownership of my greatness. Every man and woman in this community, can I curse in this station?
Fuck yeah.
So I couldn't do shit on 116th Street that didn't hit my mama and them on 119th Street before I did, and there were no cell phones back then. And so, I'm only great because the community gave it to me the way that I needed to get it, and they straightened my ass out. But I had a journey, right? And so I love when I was listening to both of these brothers about their journeys. I had a journey in this community. My journey was in addiction. My journey is in recovery. And so now how do I teach someone what I know and give someone what I have?
I want to find out from everybody how they feel about the greatness within this room. What's that?
That's my hype man. It's my hype man. And so
wait, let me repeat that.
Yeah, absolutely. I was saying about her journey and how she's transformed from active addiction into recovery. The work that she's doing now has such an impact across the community, and they're preparing to have a concert and a benefit in order to bring that love to the community in a whole new way. So,
and she's a marketing genius too.
Did I have that wrapped up? Yeah, I don't got that. Sorry, brother. No freestyling over here. Same Freestyle Friday.
So I appreciate that. And so after these other amazing guests answered that question about how they feel about the greatness, I would love to talk about this benefit concert that we have coming up, because everything that we do in this community is free. And so I would like to implore the community to help us help others. And so really, if people will give up that cup of Starbucks every day for a month, they will be able to help save lives and give back to those less fortunate. If we will stop standing online at Popeyes to taste that chicken and start standing online and standing up for each other, and here is a way that we can do that. If we're willing to not get our hair and our nails done for 1 month, we can help save a life that is right around the corner. And so, I don't think that we really understand the power that we have, the greatness that we have as a people and as a community. And so some of us have become so self-centered that we stop thinking about the person that's living right next door to us. And so I'm imploring my people to give back, to think about the person that is living next door to them, and to, step up and come see a great show in the process. But I'll get back to that after the greatness question, and then, I'll tell everybody how they can come and have some fun.
I think as a boxer, I think you have to be self-centered. Am I correct about that?
In a sense.
To an extent.
In a sense.
I'm not a boxer, but I am a martial artist, so I kind of understand a little bit of the journey these gentlemen went through. And, kudos to you both for having a professional career that was, very impressive and has now impacted,
people
behind you.
Hold up, man. I had a professional career too, man. 22 fights, 18 wins. Beat 2 world champions.
Oh, damn.
Fought Buddy McGirt. Boxed a lot of good fighters. Hector Camacho.
No
Xavier Pedroza. You might not know who that is.
I know that.
Okay, I mean, you kind of young.
Yeah.
Very cool. Fought a lot of Barry McQuaid and a lot of good fighters. So, yeah, that little thing too.
I didn't mean to discredit you, brother.
Yeah, man. You see, Doug was looking at me. He said 2 professional fighters. He was like looking at me like.
I forgot to tell him
That's
when
my
we were
bad.
coming in. I forgot to tell him. Sorry.
To seem like the connection, you came to the studio the last time.
Yeah.
I have another radio show up at City College I do on Friday mornings from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And you came, and then Matthew came.
Right. And we were talking about, my connection to Mark Freeland and my connection to Tyson. And, I used to be young and cute back in the days. And so I had some boxer friends.
So,
and Mark and I are still great friends, just in case he's listening.
Yeah, how's Mark doing?
He's good.
I know Mark very well.
Yeah. He's training Deontay, and
Yeah, the whole
he's
room
kicking
know
ass. Everybody knows Mark. He's a good brother.
Yeah, he won the Golden Glove like 5 times. Olympic champion.
Olympics.
2-time world champion.
Welterweight.
And a very nice, humble guy, right?
Oh man, yeah.
Quiet, humble dude.
But to add, he never lost an amateur fight.
Wow, he would knock you out too, boy. He was getting him out of there, man.
Straight out of there.
Yeah.
I think he had 105 amateur fights.
Yeah, he was in Laws of Discipline. Huh? No. It was I think it was Laws of Discipline. He was in that movie. So, did you ever do any work with Matthew?
So, oh my goodness, yes. So, Matthew, because of the segment that we did with you, that was like at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I really have to talk. I will only show up for this dude because I got a call at midnight. The show, I had to be there at like 5 a.m., 5:30. Girl was tired. But we showed up. It was a kick-ass show. And so Matthew and he ended up coaching our basketball league. And so we did do this basketball league. It was Safe in Harlem. So Safe in Harlem is what we do with the young people, and where every kid is my boss in this community. And so they come up with these great ideas, and we just give them the resources to make it happen. And I called Matthew. I'm like, yo, brother, how you feel about coming and coaching these kids? 5 weeks, and it was kids against NYPD. And Matthew showed up every week. He was amazing. He mentored these kids well beyond touching that ball, and that's what it was all about. He helped to open the doors to expose them to his level of education. And so, it's really important that we talk about the skills of our athletes beyond what people are seeing in the ring. And so the business acumen that we have, the professional careers that we also have, the education that we have achieved. And so not enough of that is talked about. And so when we are only seeing that athlete with the ball or in the ring or on the diamond, we're shorting ourselves of really knowing the greatness of who they are and what it took to get there. And so Matthew showed up. He just exposed them to a lot of great stuff and coached them for 5 weeks. And then we had a championship game, and it was amazing.
Wow. That's pretty.
And that was because of the connection that we had on your show.
Yeah. I'm looking for him every time because his family owns Taste the Seafood. They got about 2 or 3 of them.
So, yes, and if you have not had any great seafood recently, Taste Seafood.
Yeah, Taste the Seafood. They own that. I don't know if y'all ever been to Taste the Seafood.
Yeah, it's great.
They got
It's
a
on
few places.
Sheila, right?
Huh?
Her name is Sheila? Is
Yeah.
that Sheila?
I've been trying to get her on the show for long. I think she's kind of shy. But I've been looking for Matthew since then. I go to the store looking for him,
For you?
challenging him on the court. But he's been ducking me. Been ducking me on the court too. I've been looking for Matthew. He's supposed to be all right. He said he got game. I'm challenging him.
I'll tell him
Tell him I said
challenge
that.
is out there.
Challenge is out there.
I'll tell
That means that I started thinking about on monkey bar. He says that's nothing. I was monkey bar. Phrases. Yeah. That's right. Government name. How do you feel about I sent you the book. No response.
Well, you know, we don't play with buzz anymore.
I sent you the book.
Don't
No response.
really know what to talk about this.
That's where we started.
But okay, you know 5'2", right? Anybody know about that? Anybody know about 5'2" here? Anybody know about man over there?
Right now, I have all this made central in this room right
Wow.
now. We don't spread it each other.
You know, I ain't listen to a lot of smart people. I'm just wondering about that too. That's what come out to. So,
So this is the whole story for it, but you know, when we were on the continent, you know, we were kings and queens, and some of us are still on the continent. We are kings and queens. Many of us here are still kings and queens, but sometimes we forget that. But when we were doing, you know, off the land, we were enslaved, so that is what the hands and the chains represent. But birds represent freedom, and I believe that we will be free one day. I believe that, you know, we will get what we deserve. Yeah, that's how
I used to have a hype man, and he ain't talking about that. He ain't even talking about what's going on. That's how you get people committed. But you know, how this is when the people are on that.
you didn't see the back.
Yeah.
You didn't see the back. You didn't see the back.
See what I'm saying? Some of us know that's what you know.
So if anybody wants to see me tattooed, please come to Pillars 89 St. Nicholas Avenue. You can see me tattooed 89 Nicholas Avenue.
My name is Dwayne Norris. I'm no longer. I'm no longer president for the Rotary Club of Harlem, but I represent that.
Now, when Mark finds out about this, you came here, he'll probably lose his mind.
Okay.
Do you remember Mark, the one that introduced me to you?
Probably it was just on the block over here.
No. It was at the Rotary Club.
Okay.
That guy, the lady over food that day, or something like that.
Food packaging.
Yeah,
We do a lot of
a
stuff.
couple of years ago.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we do a lot of stuff. I apologize. My memory is not over that short. But we're a community service organization based in Harlem. So we are the Rotary Club of Harlem, which means that we are a Rotary Club that represents this community. There are Rotary clubs all around the world, 1.3 million years all across the globe. Over 20,000 clubs. Over 5,000 clubs in over 200 countries.
What does the Rotary Club do?
We do whatever the community needs. So we try to take orders from what the people are telling us they need. So every club is a little bit autonomous, and they try to figure out what it is that the needs of the community are. We focus on 4 areas, which are literacy and education. So we give out school supplies, we go to schools and read to kids. We try to really make sure they're having an impact on the organization that does health, fitness, and nutrition called Active Plus. We do block classes too, which will be all to get you guys out to do stuff for the kids. So health and nutrition and literacy and education, hunger and homelessness, which has to do with the blessing bags, some of the food stuff that we do, then workforce development and economic empowerment. So we're focused on career fair, we're focused on financial literacy, we're focused on job training, and in those areas we try to, like Lucia, connect with people who are doing the work. I mean, we can't do everything by ourselves. We're a community-based organization for all teams, so we believe in collaborations and coalitions. That's how we get shit done. You only get shit done when you have a team. You gotta have a team of like-minded people who are willing to put in the work, and when you come together, that's when magic happens.
The magic's happening. Doug, you want to say something?
I'm a little surprised because I went to a Rotary Club in Buffalo, and we do like a Rotary Club thing. You know, these towns and everything, they have little signs that say Rotary Club and all that. And when I went to Rotary Club meetings, a whole bunch of old white guys there telling me to like jokes and five minutes and shit. To the Rotary Club, I'm going like, there's a bullshit right there. And I'm complaining all day in the car, at his car. I mean, whining like a little baby. And then we get there, and I was a little surprised. At the time, they were getting up and they were talking about stuff that was in the community. And I had no idea that they would have a Rotary Club. And I thought, there's a wonderful video on Eddie Murphy. And he's just up like rapping. This was just a night live. He's got a Rotary Club in Long Island, and he's singing a song called "Kill the White Man," but by first. Seriously, the room is full of these white guys, and they're going in there, the Rotary Club. We're gonna have this next Jake and he gets up there and say, "The white man." And they come out and they go off the stage, like this, and they run back. So that's not just love on YouTube. Yeah, Rotary Club. So it's mine. Stereotype. The Rotary Club. You go there and it's nothing but white men. Okay, but here's the funny part. All the white people on the left, it was one brother in the audience. So, the white people, my white friends. For being, and this is not like a PC term, but pale, male, and sail. Right? It's got a reputation for being an old white club because all the time people who want to give back to people who've done well. That's in our community. We can't wait till you make it and start back. We got to build each other now while we're trying to get it. So a lot of times, I don't remember what I said, but yeah. So we got to build each other up now. We can't wait until somebody makes it. We can't wait till I get money and then get mine and not give you guys little crumbs. Like we got to be in there helping each other, figuring out ways to empower each other as we're going to grow. So our community has to do that. A lot of the times in other communities, you'll find people who've been successful old white gentlemen who give back. So that's how they're back when they're doing the club because it's got a nice whole atmosphere. It's got somewhere to go on Friday night or Tuesday night away from the wife or whatever. So it's a little bit of that kind of feel. But in Harlem, our club started back. What did I say? You know, come on. No.
We can't wait for you to leave the house.
Has been around for 5 years. Yeah, we meet the Salvation Army at 5 4 every second and fourth Tuesday at 6:30 p.m. We sit there and we try to have second and fourth Tuesday of the month. Yeah, and we have different stuff going on throughout the month. That's social events or service projects, like a blessing basket out there, things that are touching the community in a very hands-on way. So we actually sit and meet and we talk about ideas. We bring in speakers like you doing right now. People here educate you. We bring people educate us about what's happening in the community, so we know what's going on and we know how to.
Our project is Dwayne. tell you, I didn't plan this.
I don't plan it either, brother. Shit, I'm supposed to be in my office today.
It just happened. You know, it's happened.
Yeah. It's a pleasure to be with y'all. And you know, we are an organization always looking for partnerships and collaboration and ideas and ways to improve what we're doing and connect with other people who are doing good work or support the work that you're doing by giving them a mouthpiece. We support what we do, and we in turn support what she does. We're a mouthpiece for her. Anything she has going on at the pillars, we got to shop from the mountaintops and use our network to leverage it. We got some things upcoming with our Al Taylor. We're giving out 500 plus backpacks. On the 7th, right here in high school, we're getting out backpacks, school supplies, stuff like that. And then in November, we did a large food packaging event. Last year, we did it at the Salvation Army in partnership with some of our elected officials and community partners. We packaged 25,488 meals. We packaged in boxes and we to low food pantries to distribute. So those go out to the churches and everything. We had 180 volunteers, I think, over the course of that day. So, look us up. We always need volunteers and then community support.
Yeah, Tuesday is a but Doug, you want to say something real quick?
Someone coming over to the Rotary Club and let's talk about it. Let's see.
So how do you feel about all of this greatness in the room today?
I'm inspired, man. As I said, I'm a martial artist, trained 12 years in Bruce Lee, Jeet Kune Do, anybody doing physical combat and martial arts people. So happy for these young brothers and bad about their boxing career. You get on the make. I teach too.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about all this greatness in the room right now? Wayne, you got Bobby here, Alicia, for yourself.
I'm excited about the empowerment, especially of the empowerment of people and give them that. But, I do. I'm not waiting till I get to a plateau. Whatever I have to give, I give these folks boxing. But I'm lots of lessons. My job also insight on things, on what to do and what not to do. Certain things you do.
So Wayne, you don't understand how highly precious this brother right here.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a story. I'm like, I don't think he's just forward march. A lot of very great people, successful people, all that brown, all type of people. Highly precious brother right here. Let's put it that way.
That's family, man. You gotta
you spot with what is it? David. This guy was also from Kevin Lightweight.
Boxing conversation. But I will just take a 5-second PSA and I'll get out of your hair if I can.
That's fine.
Because I was, it was like, hey, she has to the mic. So, damn mic. On September 21st, they're having an amazing concert. And so, if anybody knows Michael Collier, yeah. Yeah, who is now in recovery. Hosting Najee. We got run okay, so 2 platinum albums, 4 gold albums, nominated. Najee is headlining. Symphony Space Theater. Broadway. We and so songwriter, producer, he's produced and played for everybody, Beyonce, Sean, Nicole, Roberta Flack, his name is Rod Barnes. So he and singer-songwriter Peter Collins. We got 3 artists and comedians showing up. Tell us the doors open, free services from what most people do not know. And we pay $15,000 a month in rent. I pay $15,000 a month. That's not begin to talk about the salaries of the people that are working there. And so, it's in Harlem. This is New Harlem. And so, and I do nothing but free services for people. And so, I do nothing to come into the doors and class, love on yourself, or become OSHA certified. You can go out and get a job like construction site, and not get all free. These friends community to step up and clap. And so to answer your question about prices, this is not all about feel goods. It's about helping me pay $50,000 a month so that I can continue to do free services. And so the price is, oh my God, I appreciate that point. We had over 10,000 class participants. And so people coming to the door as they should. I want them to continue to come to the door. We have some people that come in 5 days a week just acupressure to relieve stress. We have put over 16,000 door hangers on individual car doors. The door So one of our partners, which is Harlem Hospital, they was called and said, listen, a number of babies are being born with THC, marijuana, and stuff. There's a judgment. Every mom wants to be a great mom. They're going through stress. They want to relax, and we think it's natural, it's herbal, it's not harmful. And that may be true, except the people in development. And so when women do not know that if they smoke while pregnant, it is impacting the fetal brain development. And so we can do a campaign. And we have now placed door hangers on doorknobs in 10 micro developments. Last Thursday, we just did Harlem River 2. We did Programs the Thursday before that. And we did Colonials the Thursday before that. We have one development. We're going to Drew Hilton next Thursday. And so that's all volunteers who are showing up to impart this information.
We ask for whoever, what kind of business you have, whatever you're doing, the knockers are excellent.
It's plastic, done just like you would a hotel, put food at the server. It's not an hotel, it's exactly that. But it's an expensive proposition, right? We pay $6,000 every time we do a print one. And so what people don't understand is I'm out here and I'm doing good stuff and I'm boosting the ground, but it also costs us a lot of money to do what we are doing every day. And so that's why we're having this amazing concert. Michael Collier, Najee, Peter Collins, and Sherrod Barnes at Symphony Space Theater. And so I don't want anyone coming in. It's September 21st. And so the way you can buy your tickets is the way you would at any great venue. You go online and you select whatever seat you want. And so that would be symphonyspace.org, SYMPH, and symphonyspace.org. For extra seat, you will, you can give the VIP meet and greet. And there is reserves and there are levels, right? I want it to be accessible for everybody. I want everybody to know that we do have the power. People go out and buy an infant. They pay our Jordans that are going to grow in 2 weeks. That money can go to saving life. And so I have women walk into my space. When she walked in, she was in depression and you mentioned medications. She was on multiple medications. Her grown daughter sat on my couch next to her and cried and said, thank you for giving me my mother back. She said her grandchildren would go into her bedroom because it was dark. All she could do was lay in bed and cry. And so what I've created is a beautiful oasis. We have kids that are coming from Columbia Century School just to know that they're in a space to get homework. And that is completely unfunded. And so, we work from children all the way up to grandmothers. And that was about, it's how can I help this community from infancy all the way through to my seniors. So you can bring the baby in because we will snatch the baby and hold that baby and love that baby and rock that baby until mom or dad is done wherever reason he or she came in.
I want to just drop one more thing that happened today. First, feel the story. The lady that came today for the blessing match. So they promoted. Came with a friend who had told her about it. It was in Newark. Her apartment burned down. Last on June, there was a van outside blew up. The building in
I like that this is a great show happening on September 1st. Right? If I'm traveling, I will be there, but clearly I want to talk about something we can do. So I'm sure we have a website and we'll figure this out. Tell us how do we. So you talk about stars. But I will be welcoming to, take care of it. So your site doesn't have like a selection and say, oh, I need $50 a month or it's my time and come to my credit card or my credit card, right? They got it. It's just like a website, so I want to go with it.
And so our organization called Pillars, that's Pillars, and our website is pillars.org. On our homepage, you'll see the big Serenade Sobriety concert, and right underneath that, there's a donate button, and you can donate $1. You can donate 50 cents. It does not matter. It's just in the habit of each other.
You can volunteer, bro. You can $1 can come in.
And come and get free services.
Yep.
I don't just worry about getting a give. Come and let me give you as well. And so you can go pillars, nyc.org. Pillars, nyc.org. There is a donate button there. And come on in. I'm writing your checkers. I should ramp with checkers. And right before you go to the deli, that's where we are.
Hey, Dwayne, I wanted to go work out at Pillars. Yep. She got mad with me. She didn't want me to go. I do motivational stuff. Oh, yeah. That's motivation.
We do. But let's just say on the note that she said, you cannot personally support us. That's amazing that you would support a concert. So you can't be there. You can buy a ticket. You can donate back to the center to let somebody in active recovery or somebody who's going through their drugs attend. So you buy a ticket if you can't be there. Or else you use somebody, an organization, company, corporation that might sponsor. Because you might know people like this. You might know what company is one of the spread up things. Some publicity for them. A lot of people in the room, and everybody gets some exposure for doing great community work.
I could talk to the other show as well. I know 6 o'clock, but
I've been drinking coffee first. So,
okay. All right.
Thank you.
Tip stuff. Tip stuff. I'm to get with Jackson man from my yeah. Take a quick break. Take a quick break. I was brother Leroy coming. boxes, man. What's going on? So give me your name. What's that kid name that's fighting everybody's talking about this little young? Yes, Devontae Davis.
Oh yeah, speak to the mic, man. Speak to the mic.
Why is everybody talking about Devontae Davis? Yes, he's a good fighter. Yeah.
What makes him great? Just he has it all. Like he can box, he can do anything.
He's a little dude. What's his weight?
135, if I'm not mistaken. That's bantamweight, right? Yeah. So how would I be Davis? He's a powerful guy. What I would do fighting Devontae Davis, honestly, I wouldn't stand over a guy like him. That's what I do not want to do. With a guy who's strong, I would not stand out of box him. I'll use my jab to come out there a lot. Because on the side, obviously, it's not overwhelming. So that's how he's what is he, like 19? He's 19 and 0. Yeah, that's one thing I mean. My father, right there. Yes, sir.
Is that your trainer?
Yes, sir.
What's the last one?
Falco.
Oh, Falco. Senior and baby Falco. We got it right.
Yeah, that comes out. I mean, everybody's making it fall. Nobody throw the punches. That put it around. They get through with defense. Every time it's explosive, what you do. On defense, more stop your balance. That fight is out on train that way. And you already have these fighters right now. This is that. His face fighters, they don't have the type of skill to sustain that type of pressure all this time.
You must not see Aaron Pryor fight.
Oh, I love it.
All time.
We talk about
You don't know about the he's number boxes left in here. So he on him, but you don't
Is between the two of you guys, your style, who would you say your style is more out of I think, honestly, take out a lot of fighters, honestly. I take little things that I like, little things that we like, and we just like put together. I have a lot of favorite fighters. Like, do a lot of things from different fighters. So, like, I wouldn't say one specific.
Where do you box? Where do you box? No,
Wait, 135. I'm going for 135. Yeah.
Oh, okay, right now.
Working around like 130. You know, to be October 25th.
Yeah, I do that.
I do.
Yeah,
that's what
You run chains. You just have to stay consistent, stay determined, you know, and just make sure that everything you do is right. Eating right, sleeping well, everything has to be well. I mean, a lot of people they say that you can pull your weight. And honestly, I don't believe that personally.
barely hold the concept, can barely talk now.
You can't.
That was a main part.
Like I said before, I would win him more than the women because the women is like
They
they're coming at you, but you have to be able to control yourself.
Okay, let me jump in. Hang on, let me jump in. 19 years old, you got a world ahead of you.
Thank you.
Right. I'm sure you can control talent. Right. Just let it look if you guys can fight. It's kind of hard for you to understand what we're saying right now.
I've seen it a lot.
I was in the same position. My pro debut was against a New York State Golden Glove champion.
What's his name?
I'm not going to mention it because it ended up being a really sad story. If to my boxing record, you should sit for it. And some years later, when I started training, going to work, when I was in Wall Street, right? I still and when they started dressed up, and he's coming through the cars begging homeless. This is my pro debut fight, right? And just a couple of times, eventually I exchanged numbers. I said, let's go on, what's going on, and it really broke my heart. And one of the things that was, you beat me, but you beat the shell of me because I was going through so many issues. So you hear what I'm saying, but you really experienced it. What I'm saying to you, smart people learn from other people's mistakes. Yes. Right? So what we say too hard and say, I do not want any distractions. You have a debut coming up, you want to focus on that. Don't let anything come in the way. Why? Because that time is so short. It's very short. 19 years old, at 21, you should start thinking, am I top 10 in the world? I mean, where am I standing in terms of ranking? And these things take time.
Yeah.
Right? So, no distractions.
Yeah, no distractions.
Believe me when I tell you this. I've seen it. So, we when we say this, we want the very best for you too. Right now, it might sound like this old grumpy man, talking nonsense. That's how it comes across. They don't know anything. We need to know. That's true. You are the generosity, but that's what happens with everybody. And every mistake you make, you pay twice as much.
Yes, you could have now before the 50, now you got the mop bucket or broom and sweep somebody's floor or mop somebody else's floor. That could happen.
Hey, Rick, I say, look, whether you, I'm impressed actually that you're actually listening to your dad. So that's pretty impressive. Because most people, when they get to be a teenager, they think they know everything, or you feel like you know everything. So you feel out here and everything. The thing I think you should remember, and I'm just saying that as a basketball player, where we mess with women all the time, and never mind that. But I would say this. With this, whether you believe I'll tell you this. Before you know it, you will be 59 years old. Before you fucking know it, you'll look around and you say, you go in your house and look in the mirror and say, who the fuck is the old guy? That's it. That's how fast. I'm just telling you, that's how fast this shit's gonna go. So whether or not you believe anything that they're telling you, believe me when I tell you, this shit go by so fucking fast you don't know what you look around one day and go, I'm fucking through y'all. This shit goes by so quick, man. So it doesn't matter whether or not, you like I said, I remember that you said that at 19. That's pretty amazing. So good job, man. That's a fucking miracle. But if there's one thing to take away from right here today is remember this, man. Time goes by so quickly. You're young, you want things to go quicker, and you get old, you want shit so fucked up. Because the shit just goes by quickly. So take advantage, I would say take advantage of everything that's in front of you, and don't leave no prisoners, man. Don't leave none of that. Don't leave no prisoners. You want to be old man that's sitting around smiling and laughing because he did everything that you want to do. Yeah. And you gave everything that you have. And your dad, I don't even know your dad. Your dad want anything for you. It's for you to have exactly what you want and to be successful as you want to
tell you a true story. In 1996, Florida is going to the Olympics. I'm going to Florida. I'm playing with Jones. So they asked me to go to Las Vegas and Floyd, and I met. Right. I have so at this time with Roy Jones, right? I mean, I met him in Pensacola, Florida. So when I go to see Floyd in Las Vegas, the first thing that struck me was how dedicated Steve was. Incredible dedication. I mean, you can see him laying up. So when you see him do the thing that he did, it's not by mistake, it's not accident. It's the amount of dedication he put, it's the amount of love that he showed, and it's what he did once he got to the gym. So, you know, we are telling you this from experience. I knew from the values before even professional was up Sydney and I've been around greatness. You and I have been around greatness. Times where all the guys who so we've seen greatness. We've been around who shared the ring with greatness. All we're saying to you is don't fuck it up. Don't fuck it up. So not only for me,
you're in a position for a reason. Like if you was like a bum and you wasn't all that, the first person probably at your deck, because they ain't gonna see you get out there and be to the point. You ain't be crying for you tears for you that you wouldn't cry for yourself. So I don't think he put you out there in the hurt business. You could have some talent, and if you couldn't survive, I don't think he would be a fault.
The first thing he's ever done.
So am I right or wrong, Dad?
First thing he ever done when we first started training was like for defense.
I know that already because you're still beautiful.
I didn't throw a punch for like a whole year. Really
beautiful. But like, you guys see, I don't know if you watch NBA draft. One of the guys that got there and cried with their dad. Because the dad's like that. Their dad was there with them. They said, hey, I'm doing this. And because that's what they ran. Most kids, they ain't trying to do what they dad. But I mean, they ain't trying to do all that. And you
he likes it. He's good at it.
I know that. And I'm sure if he was good at it,
apart from that, a lot of sparring sessions and professionals we face sparring, and he's aggressive. I watch him. I stay quiet. He always asks me, well, "How do you think I did?" I don't like something. I always tell him something like, "You know what? I don't get comfortable." That's comfortability is not good.
The pros in the house, man. I want to know like the body punching. How's the body punches, man?
I have a good body shot. I feel like I have a good body shot.
I say body shot, body punches. You want to work on that body.
You want to work on the body more than one.
I think you was body punches, man. I think you like a body puncher.
Yeah, this guy's good punches.
What is he now?
Before he comes on my this man here is comes from a very I love his family. He's my brother. I love him. Yeah, he's up and coming. He's strong, very committed. He works at a different schedule than we want to come at night. But we've been together for years.
My name is Emmanuel White.
Emmanuel, let me ask you a question. I have a friend who's growing up a doctor. He had all the skills to fight. He went to fight this guy. The guy put him in the stomach and quit. True story. The shit out of it. He was talking about I seen my man and I hit somebody in this book guy. I don't know if that was he the guy and broke that's real guy hollering in the I mean somebody can remember you a shot somebody and you going home. I seen that. So let me
Q has been my trainer for God knows how long now.
You say Q who's that? Putting in the green?
Yes.
Man in the green.
Yes. The man in the green. The same shot.
That he got a problem outside.
Yeah.
He's gonna take that shit.
hasn't tweaked my performance. He has showed me everything that I can do now. Everything.
What about the girls? What about the girls?
The girls, in my opinion, the girls are always gonna be there. You just gotta restrain yourself because we're all human. You know.
I call it self-control.
Exactly.
I don't have that. I don't have that.
They asked him us, you know what I'm saying? But they asked us on one interview.
I told him.
They asked him was one interview. They asked him, how do you do it? Like, how do you manage to be able to perform the way you did? And that's why his past, right? That's how a girlfriend. Now, he said self-control. And I believe that as well. He put such a high where he is right now. That's one of the best boxers right now. He's the most searched up guy on Google. And he said that. Not only him, he has a wife for God all along since the beginning of his career. And he's been in this far.
Don't look about me.
Let me say this, man.
You can just say no to the guy. You ain't gonna say don't give him come in there. Hold on.
I have something that Javante Davis don't have. It's on radio show.
Look at that.
It's on radio show.
Yeah.
So now I want to know how you guys feel about the fact that a radio station was built in the freaking assets. That's what I want to know. I still haven't. I still like thinking in the dream world.
You don't see like it's not happening. I feel like it's amazing. Like, a lot of things like this doesn't happen. At least in the Bronx or Brooklyn, and it just doesn't happen around here. It doesn't. We see a lot of
This is not the average, you know. Yeah. You won't expect to see that.
You know how we did it? We straight with. Okay. And we said, yo, we gotta build this shit. And we got to straight the women. We can't be coming in here and carpentry and hitting nails and putting in wires and all this shit. Be unrestrained with women. So we had to take like with the women, and then this how we came in. We got busy.
So when you had y'all coming to a radio show, what came with you?
in my head, I thought, honestly, to be honest with you, I thought it was going to be like not a building. I didn't think it was going to be a project. I didn't think.
Did you go to him?
Listen, around this whole entire thing.
Yeah.
We was walking around this whole entire place just wondering where it was. He was going, we seen him, and we just we didn't imagine it would be here. We didn't. I thought it would be like a whole building or something.
When you sent me the text,
Well, I mean, I walked around for a bit, and I'm like, you know, the first floor, community room, and it's like, blue doors. So I know QQ was like, oh, just meet up with the office, and, you know, we both looked around, like, well, you know,
Yeah. So, what did you think when you came here to the radio station? They built the radio station. How do you feel about that?
I didn't know. Well, I was told it was the corner of 23rd and that's that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, we want people to know where we are.
Yeah, I was like, where's this go? I mean, he was raised around here. I work around here. I'm on the sanitation, so I passed through.
Okay.
And this is where I was raised, so I really didn't, you know, that's just that's cool.
Yeah. How do you feel like now that you're here with this fact that
I think it's cool. I think it's down to earth pace. I don't think nothing of it. I think you guys are doing something great, you know. Yeah, and I think you guys are giving people from the community a chance. You know, these guys are coming out, you give them a chance. I'm telling you, doing it, so somebody's got to do it. And I appreciate
Family name 95.
Okay, yeah. anyone. I'm not against. I'm here. I'm not I don't like Trump. I'm not saying. I don't care what he's doing. It doesn't affect me. Right, I'm here.
You get that all the time. Don't even. It's my show. Don't mention that name on the show, man. So, how you say that's the one? How you feel about? You came here, we met up, and you like, what the hell is going on here? What is this, man? We got to get in. How you feel about the radio station here in the project? How you feel about that?
It's a phenomenal thing. It's to me it shows what could be done. People get together and so this is an example. I think that if you can have a few of these, right? This one, and as an example, that
we have two other ones. We have two other ones.
Okay, good. Yes.
So we think this is
yeah.
But he's right. He's excited because this is the project that he grew up in.
Yeah.
We grew up in this project.
I mean, if you see the things is right. Yeah, sure.
He's excited because this is his homeland. Yeah. And he's
try to make fun of African. We need to get to a place where things like these are not unique.
Right. This
is standard. Right? I think about a lot of the inventions that African Americans have made. This is purple stuff that a lot of people do not know about. The good thing is that we have internet access, right? Anywhere. Wow. So you can Google it up. Google machine. One of my biggest motivator in South Africa was that apart from Nelson Mandela and a few other great names, like my cousin being the chief sparring part of the world at the time, these people very much a motivation. So if you know what has been done before, it gives you confidence to say, I can also do it. But if you do not know what we invented, how can we invent a station in the hood, right? So we just need to know more, and we need to really invest in us. I mean, it's always easy saying that to actually get it done. And we want to come out, someone let's meet. Yeah, I want to do 1, 2, 3. No, don't talk about it. Really be about it.
The most important thing, but this is not really a radio station. This is really a streaming station. We stream on radio, we stream on the machine in your pocket, on the Google machine, on your Siri, you got to do your sales with others, and where you are, if you go to South Africa, you can get on here and go, these guys, I'm about us.
Part of the self-prevention is to stay away from people who have it and yet cannot see a way through to share. They mean nothing to you. So if I say, my brother is this and that, he owns this and that, we don't try and see if we can get something, going with him. If he cannot get it done, stay away from him. He means you no good. I think we tend to get caught up into the Oprah Winfrey type stuff of things. Ricky has just kind of hang around Ricky at some point, things would happen. No, things will not happen. Rick is not interested. Rick is interested in his own self-preservation.
My name is Rick.
I'm not using you as an example.
No, my name is Rick.
No, I know. I'm saying he's a big point over So, by the way, one of the things I show these two young is that always surround yourself with people who know you from early age and for a long time, and people who, you want people who's gonna say to you 50% of the time, no. These are the people you want. You look at your point like, I know for example, right? Like, people will say, oh, can I just, yeah, sure, yeah, oh, yeah, sure. Okay, how about this? Yeah. That's your point for you. I was gonna say, no, you can't have that.
You know, the easiest part of being older, you ain't gonna do no more. So you can just break it and be like, nah, what you gonna do it? That's the difference between being old and young. You got getting everything out, so you go, not did that, not doing that, not doing that. I want to say that when we talking about that. But the same way they had the crack on. People used to tell people, nobody knew what you used to tell people, look, if somebody else used to crack, they don't like it. So people didn't know what it was when it first came out. It's free base and everything. It was all new. Nobody knew what the downfall was. And when people like started to figure out, we tell people, somebody ever come off from crack, free base, they hate you. What he's just saying to you, you want to take it in the hood of that. Everybody that comes to you ain't going to be your friend. And when you're successful, whatever it is, success, many levels, it fails in the orphan. You know when you're failing because you're going to be by yourself. When you look around to the left and the right, there's going to be people in your head. And what we say is, remember your dad, remember the people who love you, and do that shit. That's what he's, and I don't understand that, Dad. No, I'm too pissed, Dad. Oh. I said, Dad, man, you are my oil, Dad, and my, I'm saying that you are what you are, one of the reasons that you're doing what you're doing is because of he's saying that.
It's not.
No, you know that, but you did, because I guess and the one thing when you have kids is that you do anything for them, and people, when you get your own kids, as soon as you see your kid, the first second you see that kid, you want to know well. They ain't know everything that your dad feels about you. When you see your kid, you know everything that he feels about you.
Okay, so time out, man. Hold on. This is what's in your hand, bro. Right? I'm sorry, Rick. So let me think what Quincy did, Quincy Q did, you guys here was a very unselfish thing. He could have made it by himself. Came over by himself. The dude is phenomenal. Not too many people that I do that for, because like I said, I know about him before I met him. His cousin told me about him, and the way his cousin told me about him, I was very impressed. You know, he don't like to talk about the. I love to talk about. I hope he doesn't mind, but I love talking about the leg because it's a phenomenal.
Tell you.
So speaking of unselfish, there's a brother that just stepped in the door. This man sits back here. I've done over 900 radio shows, doing it for like 12, 13 November. Oh, this is my show, man. Come on, man. Back up, man. So anyway, like I was saying, this brother opened the door for me to be on the radio. The reason why I'm sitting now, and you guys are sitting here right now, is that man sitting back there. He opened the door to me. That man right there. They call him Brother Leroy. I call him Dr. Leroy. I gave him his honorary doctorate. Professor Leroy. Dr. Leroy. That's the man right there that made it happen for me. And that's why we're here today. Moving forward in the success that I ever had, I gotta look back at the roots. That's the thing we always get the root. So anyway, it's like you and Professor Leroy is like me. Like, I see a strong connection there. wind down. I just want to know from you, how do you feel about the fact that they built a radio station in the projects? How do you feel about that, man?
Well, you know, being from the hood myself, it's an opportunity to have, for you guys to get together, collaborate, and do these things so y'all can have people who are coming up, or whatever they're doing, like the different endeavors of this community. It's a blessing. A blessing.
Right. All right. Guys, we want to get ready for the communicators. Any final word? Final word you want to say before we
Guys, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. It's an honor, truly an honor to be in Harlem. Young boy from South Africa, from area to be in the U.S. It's really an awesome thing. So thank you, Rick, for having us here. Thank you, host. And hopefully we did not mess up too bad that we can get to be invited.
I want to thank you guys for inviting us to the show. Hopefully after the October 25th, see how we turn out. It's the first pro video pre-show. Next I'll see in New Jersey. So yeah, that'll be our first pro review, and we'll give you an information. Well, we can get there by right now. I don't know how to take it, but I think it's going to be given to us. I really don't know how the promoters getting it through. I don't have them signed to a promoter yet. I don't have them signed anyone. We're dealing with it on it. And
okay, so we got to get ready for the next show.
Sean, I can ask him here.
Yeah, definitely.
I want to say thank you guys to the host. Thank you, Rick.
Yes.
And keep you guys here. And check out for me. Follow me on Instagram at Foster fucking Jr. That's OFACIL and my YouTube is like that as a Foster.
Okay.
And thank you again.
All right.
Is that Grammy? Is that the Grammy or the, what do you call it? Grammy?
we won that.
What do you call it?
Hopefully all of us will be one day.
Grammy, okay.
But yeah, I want to say the same as everybody here. Thank you for everything, the opportunity to speak upon how our lives are going, how our careers are going. Thank you once again, Q, and it was a pleasure being here.
All right.
Shout out to that.
Yeah, I just want to say